Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of the Friday Farcast. Sorry for the delay. I am having a very strange Friday. I'm going to call it Freaky Friday. And without any more delay, let's bring in our man of the moment, the man of the hour, Mr. William Ramsey. What's going on, William?
Not much. Good to see you, Robert.
Good to see you, too. Sorry about the link, but man, I don't know. How are you? How do you feel about eclipses?
Strange things happen during eclipses. So, yeah. I feel like other people do things and plan things around lunar events or things that happen in the sky. So whether it's a blood moon or eclipses, and we talked about the SFK last time, and that was like during that eclipse or whatever. There were all kinds of disappearances and things like that.
Right.
Coincided with that. Very strange.
Yeah, I had the weirdest phone call today. It was very strange. So somebody in Austin called me, I think yesterday, and I was on with I don't know, another person or a client, and I just hit a response in the call. So this person calls me back today. She says, "Hi, Robert. This is Julie." I'm like, "Oh, okay. You sound a little different. Why do you sound different?" "I don't know." "Well, hold on a second. A call's coming in. I have to get this call. I'll call you back." I'm like, "Okay." And then she calls me back maybe about 15 minutes later, and she's, "Robert, I think I got the wrong name and the wrong number and the wrong Robert. So I apologize for that." I'm like, what is this even in reference to? It was really bizarre. It was very strange. So this is kind of how my day started. Okay, you called me, you got the wrong Robert, and then you apologize. Dude, it's just bizarre, very bizarre. And there's more. Anyway, we're here now. So how are you, William?
Great. Doing good. How about you? Other than a strange day.
It was just it was having, even yesterday, I had the weirdest synchronicities. Are you a synchronicity guy?
To a certain extent, yes.
So check this out. I don't mean to dig into your time, but this is really weird. So I'm working with a woman, because I do astrology on the side, and I'm working on her, it's actually more than on the side. I'm working on her wedding date, possible wedding date. And we hone in on June 6th this year for the wedding date, right? Okay, great. Looks like a great date. My next client, right after her, she wants me to look at this chart of this guy who is a Maori and was her spiritual teacher. When's his birthday? June 6th. This is right after that call. And then later in the day, I'm very intrigued by Pete Hegseth. What is going on with this guy? Who is he? Where did he come from? And more importantly, when is his birthday? June 6th. I had 3 6s yesterday, 666 within the span of 8 hours.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. And I'm not necessarily down on 666 because it's really who we are. 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, 6 protons, hello, we're carbon. Right. But then there's the other side of the 666 story, which you have no doubt delved into at a pretty deep level, right?
Well, the numerology for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Enough about
Early's numerology. Yeah.
Let's talk about you. You were on here not long ago. People loved you. We thought we had great chemistry. And I said, "Hey, you want to come back and do some more stuff?" You said yes. And you have J.D. Salinger, Catcher in the Rye. You're going to break it all down. We're going to do a 2-hour deep dive with William's material. Is there anything that you want to say or preface with this or about the subject matter?
Well, I would just say that it kind of came to my attention. I did a show on this. I had an argument with somebody online about how important J.D. Salinger's work, The Catcher in the Rye, was to Mark Chapman, the alleged assassin of John Lennon that happened in December 1980.
Yeah.
And so somebody was saying it just was just a happenstance that he had this book. So I did some reading and research, and I found out I was doing a program called the D-Hypno program. So I did an episode in 2024. And then it just kind of like, I realized that this book is connected to so many things in common culture and so many events in strange places that literally kind of lead up to the present day attempted assassinations, or whatever you want to call it, of Donald Trump in a very strange way, that it just unraveled and kind of unfolded to my perceptions.
Yeah.
And really what it did, once I did the show, I went back and read the book. I read it when I was a teen. I didn't understand it. I don't have the context that I have now at, I'm
Sure.
56. So I understand, like, I read about mind control and all these other things, and cultural influence and social engineering and these concepts that I would never have learned in high school. And so then I kind of looked at this book as something that happened post-war. Something very bad happened in the U.S. culture that's been progression since 1945. And I think J.D. Salinger's A Catcher in the Rye, which is presented as this main character is in a disaffected, isolated kid who's going through problems. But when I read this book, it was much more profound. And it led me just to kind of, who is J.D. Salinger? Why is this book that sold 65 million copies worldwide? Why is this book so popular, and why is it connected to so many assassinations and deaths?
Yeah. So if I'm not mistaken, the one thing that the shooter in Pennsylvania and Mark David Chapman have in common, and maybe I'm confusing the two, but there's another guy in this mix who has a common theme. It's Luigi Mangione, right? Because he went to Hawaii for a period of time, right?
Correct.
And then Mark David Chapman has a stint in Hawaii as well. So what is
Correct.
going?
So does Ruth. Ruth does too. Ruth
exactly.
is literally connected to building homes in Hawaii, a stone's throw from where Chapman supposedly worked at a hospital that was kind of a mental hospital. Like, he was supposedly a kind of super or whatever, like a janitor or something like that. So these guys all have a connection, not to Hawaii, the whole state, but specifically to Oahu. Mm-hmm. And Mangione had a real personality change, much like Chapman, much like these other guys. Something happens. Mangione was a very high functioning person and somehow went to Hawaii and was in kind of like a commune. I think it could be described as that. I think it's called surf front or something like that. But we'll get there. It's incredible.
I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but
no. I think it's important because we can start in the present and go to the past and lead up to this. One of the odd things that's similar to Ruth and Mangione and Chapman is they come out of Hawaii and somehow make it to New York City. The killing of this healthcare CEO took place in Manhattan, where the sequences of Catcher in the Rye and Chapman take place. And Mangione fled into Central Park. Like, you cannot make this up.
It's crazy.
So why does he go? Like, why doesn't he wait for somebody to come to Hawaii? Right? Like, there's a lot of questions about Mangione. And
absolutely. Absolutely. Before we get into this, and I can't wait to start peeling back the layers with you here. Why was this book almost required reading for every high school student?
It's an excellent question. It's a question I don't have an answer to. And I think that my kind of more, I called one of the episodes I did about this, like, the paranoid take. As I've gotten older, I've become more paranoid and kind of like there's maybe some things under the surface or some sub rosa meaning. And you'll see the people who support this book. I think we talked about Winona Ryder. This is her favorite book, which she has a strange history too. But some of the people who like this book, like, you're talking about world controllers, like very important people think this book is important. But when you kind of understand psychological states and what's actually in the book, you might see it as a means of social transformation and kind of with a sinister thing that, and there was a lot of resistance to this book being put into the kind of public school system corpus. And if you research like Skull and Bones and Skull and Bones very much involved in public education. People don't know that. That's what George Bush is a member of.
Yeah.
Then you have to see this as kind of like a little kind of one of the stones in the wall of human perception. And this guy, the central character, there's nothing positive about him. Holden Caulfield is a jerk. He's there's nothing redeemable. There really isn't anything redeemable about him. So why are you reading this book? And the ending of the book doesn't have kind of like a tidy bow that wraps it up where it's like, okay, Holden learned all this stuff and he came out a better character, or he became a Christian, or he joined a monastery, or became a monk or something, you know. There's nothing like that. He actually starts in a mental institution and ends in a mental institution. So what are they trying to impart to the public? Why are these young impressionable minds reading this book? It was written by supposedly written by an intel agent, J.D. Salinger. And their themes in this are very dark. Like it's almost like a parental warning in this book, like pedophilia, murder, death, dissociation, anti-Christian sentiment. It's all in this book. And why is it being exposed like you asked? It's a good question. I don't have an answer to it. I wouldn't expose anybody to this book.
So my gut tells me that the book is being introduced to adolescents, 14, 15 years old, right? Maybe 16, but still in that zone. And it's a very interesting kind of catabolic phase where you're kind of going from a pupae to some other kind of, life form. And young people are highly, highly influenced during that period because they're kind of in a state of flux. And these ideas can come in at a particular time and shape and mold their consciousness on a subconscious level that most people aren't even aware of. This is just my gut instinct as to why it was almost required reading for high school students, because it gets in there, right? It gets into that place where they're sort of in this liminal state from one being to another being. And I've always felt like that period of adolescence is highly targeted. You move it forward and we could have a whole show about transgenderism, sexual identity, the adaptation of gay, lesbian clubs on high school campuses starting in the late 90s, right? Go back to the 60s and Madison Avenue and Flower Power and really getting into the minds of these young people. And I think Catcher in the Rye has been that one constant across a number of generations.
I think you're right. And I think you're right. I mean, to continue on to add to your theme, it's like you're young, impressionable. I went through the whole school system all the way up, and I just was like receiving information. I didn't really question it. Wasn't old enough to contextualize it. Now I am. But like then, like you're getting this impression of this book, which is a very dark book. Like the reading of it's very dark. Like, and why is that happening? What's the greater goal? Like, and I think you see this facilitation of this change in the culture that this book is really a part of. And I think it's involved in the CIA. Like, I think this is a culture creation. I mentioned it in my slides, which we'll get to. But it's still like, why is this around it's later on in the slides. But this is like the classic picture. It's Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger, red, and with this yellow stuff. One of the funny things is like, this is like, you talk about high school. I'm going to bring up this video. Let me see if I can get it to present. But it is of South Park, and they're talking about Catcher in the Rye in high school. And I think this is funny. Maybe you can play this.
Okay.
If you just click on that.
Okay, kids, let's take our seats. There has been a change in school policy, and so I'm assigning you all a book to read.
A book? God, I hate those.
Now, kids, this book is very controversial, and has just been taken off the banned books list.
Oh, really? Sweet.
It's called Catcher in the Rye, and it has some very risque parts
All right.
and strong, vulgar language.
Awesome, cool.
And in fact, many schools across the country still ban this book because it's thought to be so inappropriate.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Tonight, I want you to read chapters 1 through 5, and tomorrow we'll discuss the...
No, come on, let's read it now. Mr. Garrison, didn't the guy who shot John Lennon say it was because of this book?
Yes, apparently John Lennon's killer said he was inspired by Catcher in the Rye, but he was just a kook.
Whoa, you're telling us this book is filthy, inappropriate, and made a guy shoot the king of hippies? Can we please read this right now?
You will read it at home, and you will all be mature about its adult themes and language.
So there you have it. Like, the add-on of the theme you're talking about is that they're exposing kids to this book, knowing that it has these very, I would say, kind of transgressive themes. And before we get into the slides, like, I would just want to go through who is Holden Caulfield. This is a 16-year-old boy. His parents are rich. He goes to a private school called Pensy in Pennsylvania and gets kicked out. This is his fourth school he's been kicked out. And you're in his mind. So you're literally kind of retelling what his brain is doing. So it's not like you're in a third person. And you're hearing him talk in this self-narrative this whole time as he goes back to Manhattan into Central Park. He ends up in Central Park, strangely. And you'll see this theme of a carousel. That's how the book pretty much ends. There's 26 chapters. The carousel is where he meets up with his sister, who is Phoebe, who's 10, and he has a very strange relationship. There's been articles about the pedophilia themes in there. I think that they're accurate. Like, this is not appropriate, his kind of obsession with his sister. But this book, as he travels back into this thing, he's talking to other peoples. And actually, I think this book is in the context of this kind of Kinsey report, which came out in 1948. And there's conversations, you'll see that in this book. But he literally starts out this Holden Caulfield, a call for people who don't know, or people who might be into, witchcraft or whatever. When a baby is born with a caul over its face, it's usually ascribed to be having this person having second sight or spiritual powers. It was seen as kind of like the seventh son of some son, like you would have. This is it. So I think that's deliberately why they call him Holden Caulfield. And the field is a reference, I think, to an overlap, kind of almost a hypnotic overlap to the Catcher in the Rye. Rye is a field of rye. And the title itself is very strange because it's a title of a Burns poem. It's somebody who's walking through the rye. It's not a catcher. It's the fact that Holden Caulfield is actually misinterpreting a Burns poem, which goes by "If a body catch a body coming through the rye." So he calls it a catcher in the rye, but he wants to be a catcher in the rye. He's trying to keep these kids safe. So there's a focus on children again. He wants to keep the kids safe from harm and damage. So he's going to be a catcher in the rye to keep them going off a cliff. So that's kind of the ending theme of the book. It's very strange. But he starts off the book. I mean, Salinger, we can do a whole show on Salinger and pedophilia. Like, there's articles, there's like videos on YouTube detailing Salinger's relationship when he was 30 or 31 with a 14-year-old girl. And she talks about it. Like, she's like, yeah, I was 14 and he was paying attention. So this like theme of that time overlaps with this. And that Lolita came out, I think, 2 years after this book. So I think it's important to see all these other books that came out that were very transgressive. I mean, Kinsey, you can take apart Kinsey. He was a complete fraud. I mean, I think that all his research.
Oh yeah, yeah. We've covered Kinsey kind of ad nauseum with Russ Winter here.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
so he knows Russ. I actually have expected Russ to be here on the show. So fortunately, he was not here. I need to reach out to him. I just reposted one of his shows from 2021. It was called Mind Control America, which ties into, I think, to the themes of this. But you had the Kinsey Report 48, Lolita 53, and this book, which really ends up with like kind of a pedophilic theme. I think it was like very dark. Like, that's the end. Like, that's the final chapters is Holden Caulfield with this thing going to meet his 10-year-old sister who talks to him like an adult, which is very weird. But there's repetitive statements in this book that we'll see overlap with these assassins, Sirhan, Chapman, or there's a lot of repeats, and it's very strange. But there's also this whole idea of depersonalization. So Holden views everybody as crooks and phonies, but he's like dehumanizing. They're not like real whole people to him. Everything's fake and phony. And I think that that's kind of his mental state. He dissociates. He's schizo. Like, these are very intense states that overlap with a lot of what was going on in these mind control kind of programs. Really, is try to get people in dissociative states, traumatic based mind control, things like that. He repeats, you will, but he also he doesn't see reality good. He asks the question over, and you'll see this in the book covers, is that where did the ducks go when the winter happens? He doesn't understand the ducks fly south for the winter. So he doesn't comprehend, his brain isn't working great. So he's not fully attached to kind of simple things that even kids would know about what happens to ducks. He has this red hat. He calls it a people shooting hat. I shoot people with this hat. This is another of this repetitive violence. There's real, like, violent statements in this book. And you'll see that he's kind of like an incel and a repressed violent person who doesn't commit violent acts, but he's thinking violent acts. And you'll see that at the end of this book, there's he goes to, this is in real life. It's the Natural History Museum is right off of Central Park to this present day. He goes in there. He sees somebody writes the word F-U, right? F-U-C-K-Y-O-U. And that sets him off. If I could catch that person, I would beat their brains out and bloody, like really violent stuff. So he's using this catch term. So the catch association between the title and these phrases in the book is there. It's really bad. So you can see, like, if somebody reads this book over and over, they're going to associate this catching with violence. And that's another thing. Like, there's an assumed thing that, like, the Rye and the Sith, almost like the communist Sith and the Rye, like, that's another word for that. So there's like this violent, dark associations going on. But this murder hat, you'll see this, like, and so at a kind of a topical phase, if you don't know the book, you'll just see a picture of Holden Caulfield with this hat, which we'll see. But he's literally putting it on to shoot people with this hat. He wears it around backwards. Yeah. So it's very dark. He's in psychoanalysis at 13. So he also breaks things. He's not aware of why he's doing it. He broke all these windows. He's lazy. He never does any work. He doesn't have any redeeming characteristics. So he's not an athlete, a scholar. He doesn't chase women. Like, he's an unsuccessful. Like I said, he's an incel. Oh, he doesn't.
So you're basically saying he's a millennial. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, so they could
just
probably
kidding. No hate for the millennials.
Identify with this, but like, he doesn't have, like, the standard archetype of a high school person, right? Nerd, jock, woman, drunk or whatever, druggy, intellectual. He just doesn't have any of those positive characteristics. But he repeats things over and over. I'm a madman. I am a madman. This is crazy. So he's thinking of himself, like, dissociates, and he's a madman. Once a rat, always a rat. He can put people into a trance. They literally use the word trance, or Salinger used the word trance. We know Salinger was kind of sophisticated psychologically because he was in intelligence. He spoke French and German. And at that time, it was very important to kind of psychologically analyze people because he was involved in interrogations because they were trying to get all the information from the Nazis.
Interesting.
Yeah. So he understood this kind of interrogatory kind of language and things like that, and getting into people's minds and getting them to talk. That was his job. And he actually ended up in a mental institution. They would have called it PTSD now, but he had called shell shock. He was in a mental institution. So you see this kind of mental or troubled psychological state in the real author bleeds over into this book. So he sits. I mean, the red hunting cap is a common theme. One of the other things that's in this book is almost every sexual I don't think they call it perversity anymore. But in 51, every sexual perversity is in this book. Transvestitism, homosexuality, voyeurism, pedophilia. It's all there. And it's really incredible how much is in the sadism, masochism. He literally says a woman's body is a violin. Like, so he's associating like a woman's violin. You play it like a musical instrument. One of the he calls himself, he's a sex maniac in his mind. He has he's in a hotel and he has a relationship with a prostitute. He gets a prostitute delivered to his room, and she's available, but he wants to talk. He doesn't fulfill the act of what you get a prostitute for. And she's like mystified, like, why are we doing this? And
I hate to interrupt you, but do you know what that reminds me of?
Oh, I don't know what.
That reminds me of Linda Lovelace's story about when she visited John Lennon.
Interesting.
And John Lennon basically got drunk, talked to her, and went to bed.
Wow.
Very similar. Very, very similar. Before we move on, we're going to get into this pretty deeply. There are two things that I wanted to just throw into the discussion very quickly. First off, going back to that South Park cartoon, Matt Stone and Trey Parker went to Columbine.
Right.
A lot of people don't realize that, and there are actually some people who think that they're Dylan Klebold and the other guy. Right now, I'm not so sure that I would go that far, but the Columbine connection with those two is really, really interesting. The other thing is that when I think of J.D. Salinger and your breakdown of him and his background and what he's able to do, he reminds me a lot of Leonard Cohen.
Wow, yeah, interesting.
Because they both have like military operative backgrounds. Of course, Leonard Cohen was in the IDF. A lot of people don't know that about Leonard Cohen. He was in the IDF. Leonard Cohen went through McGill University. He was a master in neurolinguistic programming, also a novelist, and not just any novelist. Like, you know, some of his novels are in the same thematic ballpark that we're talking about here with J.D. Salinger.
Wow.
And there's a documentary where Leonard Cohen is at the I believe the Isle of Wight concert, and everybody's flipped out. Right, they're all high on bad acid. This thing is about to just go into complete pandemonium, and Cohen puts him in a trance. He NLPs the entire audience. So I think that there's a kind of an interesting connection between these two characters. All right, let's jump in.
Well, just to continue, Leonard Cohen has also said he was a subject under Ewan Cameron at McGill. We know Ewan Cameron's at McGill.
Right.
There were two people. One was another writer on 9/11. I can't remember his name offhand. But people went through there. So there was a lawsuits, but not everybody who was exposed to these things sued. But he was in the kind of isolation, like they were doing these tests which were really intense. So it's not surprising that Cohen knew this stuff. And Salinger, there's some, privileged background, good schools. It gets weird because he was in the same unit, I think it was called the CIC, as Kissinger. Like, so he might have mixed with Kissinger. And here's another interesting tie between Salinger and Cohen, is that we know Ewan Cameron was there at World War II doing all of these studies in the same area where Salinger is. And they might have Salinger may have come across Kissinger and Cameron because they're both. Salinger was interested, like I said, he's and this was actually a lot of the psychiatrists at the time were writing this, like, how do we keep the Germans from having another war? Like, how do we kind of pacify them or psycho-civilize them? And how do we interrogate them to see what we can get and also some of the mind control stuff came out of Germany. So they were actually getting information. So it's not even the fact that Salinger's getting information. It's what information he's trying to get out, right?
Yeah.
He's not just individuals. What do you know and what can we use? And that's really what was an interest in the OSS that led up to the CIA in 1947. So he's in this, he's neck deep, Salinger's neck deep in that history and the association with Cameron and Kissinger. There's no question.
Interesting. Elsbeth brought this up. Coming in a little late, Salinger was eventually drawn to Zen Buddhism. Leonard Cohen became a Zen Buddhist monk. And he was actually made a Zen Buddhist monk by this guy Roshi, like the Zen master Roshi, right? So here's another parallel between Salinger and Leonard Cohen. The novel that Leonard Cohen's most known for is called Beautiful Losers, by the way.
Beautiful Losers. I'll check that out. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I just thought he was a singer, but I mean, he was obviously a wordsmith, right? First order.
There's some speculation that he actually wrote the early Dylan songs.
Wow.
Yeah. So
it wouldn't surprise me. So much culture creation.
Wouldn't surprise me.
There's
either.
another. I put up another video. Maybe this is kind of a funnier video. That's part of this South Park. Maybe we can play that too.
Let's get into your slideshow. Let
me just finish my overview of the book, because there's just a couple more things I want to. This, he identifies, if people know their New Testament, he identifies with the lunatic in the Bible. If you remember the sequence, Christ is out in the wilderness and there's a man who is demon possessed, and the man, he can't be saved. He breaks chains and stuff. And he goes, "Who are you?" "I am Legion." That's who Holden Caulfield identifies in the Bible. He thinks that the apostles are chumps, and that he asked the question, is Judas going to hell? So this is at that time, very sacrilegious stuff. Especially he's associating with demon possession, right? So this isn't a joke. Like, this is heavy duty stuff. And we can talk about like which one. He's crazy. He's suicidal. He gets angry. He hates everything. He gets angry. He has actually really good taste. So he gets angry at people with low class kind of luggage and things like that. So he knows all the brand names and things like that of like higher class living. So it's really kind of, so he goes into a wicker bar, if you're aware of like the Wicker Man or Wicker from history. So these names are in there. I swear to God, I'm a madman. And there's a sequence where he runs into a guy named Luce, and we know Luce was the head of Time Life at the
That's
time.
right. Yeah.
Luce, the character of Luce, is a sexologist. All he does is talk about sex. And Luce kind of promotes the same ideas that are in Kinsey's book. He says half of married guys are gay, which is not even close to true. That probably 5% of men are gay at the max or something like that. There's not that many gay guys. Not as many as like they promote, but like he's retelling all this stuff, and he imagines his own death. He's also a chain smoker, and Holden Caulfield is a chain smoker and a pyromaniac. So he likes to light matches and have them burn down until they go out in his fingers. And then it basically ends up with like the end of the book at the chapter 26. It ends up him in a mental institution. His brother's visiting him, his older brother. And he says, "I don't know why I'm telling you this." So he breaks the fourth wall again. He does it at the beginning, I believe. But at the end of the book, he breaks it and starts talking to you. So you're in his mind the whole time. Then he says, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. I didn't really learn much, basically. Like, I didn't learn certain things. And this is my story." So there's no like neat ending. It's just all stream of consciousness. And he basically implies to the reader that there's nothing to learn, even though you've gone through this whole thing of prostitutes and exposed to sex and his negative worldview. So that's basically my general overview of Catcher in the Rye.
Wow. Okay. So that's the 64. That's a 40,000 foot view.
Yeah.
And we're going to zoom in. We're going to zoom in now.
So we'll go in. And so this is the thing about Catcher in the Rye, is that here's the other thing. So it ends up with his sister at the carousel in Central Park, which is still there. And this is the horse. And he's really with his sister, Phoebe, who he has this kind of strange pedophilic relationship with her. So this is actually, the red is kind of imparting this whole weird sex, like this kind of romantic thing. You're not incestuous thing. You're not supposed to have with your sister. Like, it's, so that's what it's being implied here. But it also takes place at Central Park, which will tie into Chapman. We'll see this later. So this is the cover I was telling you about earlier. So this is another cover from the earlier one. He's thinking about the ducks, Holden Caulfield. He's wearing the hat that he murders people in chain smoking. So this is not a positive guy.
No.
65 million copies sold worldwide. So this is like a massive cultural phenomenon. It's not like a low selling book. Why is it sold so many copies? I mean, think about the industry. If it's $10 a book, that's almost like $750 million.
Wow.
So Holden Call, I mean, this is like Salinger going back. And Salinger, one of the interesting things about Salinger, he wasn't a very prolific writer. Like he wrote Zoe and whatever, and maybe a couple other books, but like he really became a recluse. This is his greatest selling book. And this article kind of goes into his World War II days. He was literally in D-Day. And I think this is all important as its influence in the book. Here he is, like, I think in his like the 77th Battalion. Headed off he was in Omaha Beach, or one of the beaches at D-Day. Pretty incredible. 44, I think that was June 44.
He looks fucking crazy.
There's something not right about this guy. I don't know.
You could kind of. I mean, who wouldn't be crazy going into a situation like that, right? But
he said like he never got over the smell of burning bodies. I think that he was also a Dachau.
Interesting.
So he said the burning. And so then we moved to this theme of this guy really liking. This is David Chapman and
Mark
this
David
weird
Chapman.
picture. Yeah. So he supposedly killed Lenin, which to me is a dispute. We're told he killed Lenin, but I don't think he was the actual shooter, believe it or not.
What is Mark David Chapman's ethnicity? When I first saw him, I'm like, this guy looks really weird. Like, what is his ethnicity?
I think he's from Georgia. I don't really know his family background that much. I don't know. I know he had a very strange life. He was 24 or 25 when the shooting happened. And he had been all around. Like, he had been a LSD user, a born-again Christian. He traveled, I think, to Vietnam to help Vietnam with an association to World Vision, which supposedly is a CIA cutout. So he had a very strange kind of background.
You know, when I look at him, he's got a bit of a Jim Jones vibe.
Yeah, he sure does. I think
okay, let's keep going here.
That weird still face.
Yeah, and you couldn't really figure out where, was Jim Jones white? Was he black? Was he mixed? I mean, Chapman's got kind of that weird ambiguity. Not so much here, though. Here he's looking quite different.
That's not him. That's John Hinckley making kind of the same.
Oh, it's John. No wonder he looks different.
Yeah, and
Hinckley.
If you remember, Hinckley tried to kill Reagan in,
right.
I think it was March of '81. So
it was just a few months removed from the inauguration. Yep.
Exactly. And a few months from the attempted or the killing of Lenin. Right.
Right.
These are both like 3 months apart, and both have a connection to Catcher in the Rye, which was the. So there's Hinckley. He's out of jail now. Another interesting background.
He's an Aries. John Hinckley is an Aries. Yes.
That's him. Like, I guess that's his arrest or somewhere March.
We're 2 days. We're 2 days away from his birthday.
Oh, good point. Oh. So the Hinckley's still in the news. This is from TMZ. John Hinckley Jr. asked by X users to assassinate Donald Trump. So this whole assassination theme that's associated with Catcher is current. Like, it's not a joke. And we'll see all this documentation in this thing. So Hinckley had an obsession. So Holden has this obsession with Phoebe, and Hinckley had this obsession with Jodie Foster, who was in
Taxi Driver.
Thank you. Taxi Driver takes place in New York City, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all this weird New York City ties to all this stuff, the book and these movies and the comic culture. Taxi Driver, one of the most influential films ever made, maybe. I think it won Academy Award for the screenplay. But Hinckley really identified with Travis Bickle. And so we'll get kind of Travis Bickle information here in a minute. And what we're going to find is this is Travis Bickle by
De Niro.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I think Hinckley was like really obsessed with her and Bickle. But one of the things about Hinckley that we'll see is that he becomes Travis Bickle. So this obsession with this is pedophilia or hebrophilia or whatever. He puts himself in the mental scape of Travis Bickle. We'll see more about Bickle here in a sec, but if you can go to the next slide, I'll read it. This is from The President Has Been Shot. Just one more slide, please. Hinckley identified with Travis and began to act like him after he had seen the film 15 times. So he watched Taxi Driver 15 times.
Wow.
He bought the same clothes, ate the same foods, drank the same liquors, and invented a girlfriend just as had Bickle. He bought this gun. There's a famous gun scene within Taxi Driver, if you remember that.
Yeah, the guy comes out with the suitcase. It's in his apartment, and he brings out all these guns, and then he says, "Hey, you want some drugs? I got Benny's. I got this. I got that." That scene. Yeah.
And like you go back and look at Hinckley, like he's this successful, talented guy. Hinckley did well in sports. Hinckley's basketball coach 3 years. He was a beautiful looking little boy, a wonderful athlete, really a leader. He was the best basketball player on the team. So like you see this kind of past of success and ability that somehow goes away. I don't know why. This is another guy that's overlooked sometimes into the research and capture. His name is Robert John Bardo. He killed a young actress in Los Angeles. Her name was Rebecca Schaefer. She was 21. He was young too.
Mhm.
Scary looking face. But the book he carried around was Catcher in the Rye.
He looks possessed.
Yeah. So that's her beautiful girl, Rebecca Schaefer. She was an actor on something, but like there are articles about stuff that he was doing. And the other thing is this whole thing of travel. So he's traveled to LA to do it. And you'll see all these guys are traveling around. Why are they all moving? They don't stay and kill in their own environment. Whether it goes to Ruth or Mangione or Chapman or Hinckley or this guy. Why
They're rootless.
What's going on? Why is that all similar? So this is Thursday recovered a yellow shirt, a gun holster, and a paperback copy of the novel Catcher in the Rye. Only blocks from the Fairfax district apartment where actress Rebecca Schaefer was shot to death. So we can go to the next one. Red paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye was found on the roof of the Beverly Palms Rehabilitation Center on Beverly Boulevard. He, Bardo, indicated that he threw a red-covered paperback book entitled Catcher in the Rye in the alley while he was running. Discovery of the book harked back to the 1980 shooting of former Beatle John Lennon by one-time mental patient Mark David Chapman in New York City. After the obsessed fan shot the rock singer, he calmly took out a copy of the J.D. Salinger novel and was reading it when police arrived. So that is all true. These are just a couple articles that I found that shows that these guys were in the news together.
Yeah.
So Hinckley, and you see in the middle there, it says reads Catcher in the Rye passage in court, which we'll see. So it's not just that Chapman had an interest in the book. He was obsessed with the book and said he became Holden Caulfield, right? Much like I just talked about Hinckley becoming Travis Bickle, right?
Yeah.
So if you can keep going. Hinckley, he was 26. These guys are all around the same age, which is really weird. Mid-20s. Oswald, 24. Sirhan, 24. Hinckley, 26. Chapman, 25. Why are they all the same age? So they're traveling around. They're all the same age. Weird.
Kind of a different rendition.
Dad, son.
Yeah. Kind of a different
he actually thought he
rendition.
could win the love and admiration of this young movie actress whom he never met by assassinating the president. So he had this kind of weird thing going on in his brain. These guys were all covered. What you'll find too is they're surrounded by sophisticated psychiatrists. This was another one, Park Elliott Dietz. If you watch TV, he's on all the time. But Bardo was supposedly not insane because he had a schizophrenic disorder known as splitting. So he literally had a split brain. Like how he had that. He alternated between seeing Schaefer as all evil or all good, but was not aware of the shift of his emotions. So he's got schismogenesis or something going on. This guy he was smart and supposedly crazy enough to be crazy, but smart enough to hire detectives to track her down and find her address. How did he get so fixated on this girl and be obsessed with the book Catcher in the Rye? So it's an open question. Just another slide of Chapman and Hinckley together. That's Rebecca Schaefer, I think, with her parents. Accused killer had a copy of Catcher. And this is just an article from Rare. How the Catcher in the Rye is linked to JFK, John Lennon, and Rebecca Schaefer. So JFK connection is allegedly, or a couple people have said this, I've not confirmed it, that in the library of Oswald was a copy of Catcher in the Rye, and he liked the book. This is from another book about mind control and pedophilia and all kinds of dark stuff, The Shining. And you will see the woman there is reading Catcher in the Rye. And her son, Danny, talks to entities and had shines too, right? And so this is from the book, the movie Conspiracy Theory with
Mel Gibson.
what's her name?
Julia.
Mel Gibson, and I forgot her name. Famous actress.
Yeah.
But Catcher in the Rye is very much involved in this movie. Let me see if I think I have a video for this. Maybe you can play this. Let me see if I can put this up. Percent video.
Can you hear me, William?
Can you play this video that I just put up?
Yeah, sure.
Still there, Robert?
You receipt?
Yeah. Thank you.
The volume on?
Catching a Rye.
Yeah,
It's a classic.
yeah.
Have you ever read it?
Yeah, I
Use your volume.
never.
Check 1, 2.
Never?
Oh, never read it. I never.
So he's at a bookstore. He's bought The Catcher in the Rye. So it's that's a whole nother show. But yeah, that's The Catcher. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. All right. Just
You seem to be out of it.
okay.
Private chat. Let me leave and come back.
Can you hear me? Yeah, that's it. There we go. I think we ran into this last time with William. For whatever reason, this is the one thing about StreamYard. Well, there's two things now. The sound and the mics sometimes are glitchy. And then I've been having some issues with presentation. So I think StreamYard is kind of being overtaxed. Can you hear me now, William?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I just, StreamYard has getting kind of glitchy with sound
Yeah, it is. It
and
really-
and some other issues, like in terms of presenting with videos and slides. Like I've been having to reload them after I load them. So
Yeah. No, it's
think-
bad. Like I'm trying to get off of StreamYard. I'm trying to go through all my past stuff and get off of it because of this reason.
yeah,
Like it's for the amount of money I pay on my end, like they should send me,
it should be
Yeah.
operated at a much higher level.
no question. They sold it. The original guy sold it to some company in Italy and it's gone downhill. It's an embarrassment.
It has. Okay.
So anyway, that was some video. We won't try not to play as much video. But
Julia Roberts is the name of the actress. And
Thank
you were
you. Thank you
trying to
very
think of
much.
there. Yeah. No problem.
So let's see. We were back to Catcher. We did that. This is the other one that indicates this is from a researcher, Joe Atwill, who talked about the Freemasonic elements, which I think are there in this book. I don't go into them as I'm not a Freemason, but at that last sentence it reads, "It is alleged that Lee Harvey Oswald has a copy of in his apartment, and that it was one of his favorite books, though this is disputed."
Mhm.
So it's Oswald. And this is just this kind of repetitive phraseology. This is a people shooting hat. I said, I shoot people in this hat.
Wow.
So, yeah, and this you can go read the audiobook. This is the picture from the audiobook right now. He's in a people hunting hat, chain smoking. Like it's crazy. I read this book, Mind Games, The Assassination of John Lennon. I've talked to this author. He does not believe that Chapman was the real assassin.
I don't either.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Some people don't know about, but this is from Fenton Bresler's book, The Murder of John Lennon. He literally goes into this mind control theme. And I think it's very important because it just shows how he actually ties this to Sirhan, and there is an interesting connection. Sirhan allegedly shot RFK in 68, but they had the same psych doctor with the CIA
Wow.
connection, which we'll get to.
Wow.
When you come to read in detail about how Mark Chapman behaved after Lennon's murder, you'll find a striking parallel between the dazed, as if in a trance-like condition, of the two men, that's Sirhan and Chapman. Mark remembered more of the actual killing, but otherwise their reactions were almost identical. And remember what ex-lieutenant of detectives Arthur O'Connor has said. I saw him the night of the murder. I studied him intensely. He looks as if he could have been programmed. And I know what use you are going to make of that word. So you see this kind of same kind of program sensibility or whatever talking about it. But this is the connection between Sirhan and the other guy. What is it? Sirhan Chapman. Odd footnote to all this. The principal medical defense witness for Sirhan was Dr. Bernard Diamond of the University of California, one of America's leading psychiatrists who used hypnosis in his work. So incredible stuff. Yeah. You still there? Gosh.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
I'm afraid now. So here's like you see this repetitive phraseology in Chapman and Sirhan stuff. Sirhan writes, yes, Sirhan wrote. Are you crazy? No. Why are you writing crazy? Practice. Practice for what? Mind control. That's what Sirhan literally wrote.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, interesting stuff. So this catcher kind of goes out. And one of the interesting things about his interest in catcher is that he just picked up this notion of the catcher. He did not, Chapman did not like love catcher his whole life. It was something that he picked up before the shooting of Lennon. The theory is that he had always identified himself with Holden Caulfield, the book's phony-hating 16-year-old hero, ever since the first Catcher he read Catcher at the same age. After all, this is the book the amazed New York policeman found him quietly reading outside the Dakota when he had thrown down his gun immediately after killing Lennon, with the inscription on the inside of the cover written by Mark, to Holden Caulfield from Holden Caulfield. This is my statement. So he literally wrote that in the book. So he saw himself as Holden Caulfield. In his prison cell awaiting trial, he maintained the reason I killed John Lennon was to gain prominence, to promote the reading of J.D. Salinger's The Catcher in the Rye. I'm not saying I'm a messiah or anything like that. If you read the book, if you understand my past, you will see that I am indeed the Catcher in the Rye of this generation.
Interesting.
So he literally saw himself as the Catcher in the Rye. And here's another thing. This is like the day of the murder. This is what happened to him. An ominous factor came into his life. He became interested in The Catcher in the Rye. We do not know why. We do not know if anyone suggested it to him, and if so, who. Catcher is a book that most people read once in their lifetime. So, like, they acknowledge this, like, it's once in a lifetime type stuff. But the next one's really interesting. Let's see. Exact temperament. There's another one. There's another where he like literally is walking around. Here it is. That's the next one. Can you go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, one more. Let's see. Oh, as he walked the 20 blocks up to the Dakota on West 72nd Street, incongruous amid the lightly dressed New Yorkers with his heavy winter gear, he realized he was missing a prop. He had with him his double fantasy album, but something was missing. He halted his progress towards Lennon's selected place of execution and dived into a bookshop to emerge with a red paperback copy of The Catcher in the Rye. On the title page, he wrote, to Holden Caulfield, from Holden Caulfield, and below, this is my statement. So he literally wrote that down. And he would, like, between times Lennon was gone, he'd be reading Catcher in the Rye. It's absolutely incredible. And then he writes something to the New York Times. On February 1st, this is like 2 months after he supposedly killed Lennon, Mark sat down and wrote to the New York Times in ballpoint capitals a statement, which the newspaper printed 8 days later. Seldom could a book that first appeared in paperback 17 years earlier have had such glowing sales boost. It is my sincere belief that, quote, it is my sincere belief that presenting this written statement will not only stimulate the reading of J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye, but it will also help many to understand what has happened. If you are able to view the actual copy of The Catcher in the Rye that was taken from me on the night of December 8th, you would find the handwritten words, this is my statement. Unfortunately, I was unable to continue this stance and have since spoken openly with the police, doctors, and others involved in this case. I now fully realize that this should have not taken place and been done, for it removed the emphasis that I wanted to place on the book. My wish is for all of you to someday read The Catcher in the Rye. All of my efforts will now be devoted towards this goal, for this extraordinary book holds many answers. My true hope is that in wanting to find these answers, you will read The Catcher in the Rye. Thank you, Mark David Chapman, The Catcher in the Rye.
Interesting.
Yeah, crazy.
Very, very interesting.
Then, just one more thing. He goes then to August. He goes into court. He carries with him a copy of The Catcher in the Rye. He walks in, and then he makes a statement. He talks about, he had worked it out. If you check to yourself, you can find it. Holden Caulfield is talking to his sister Phoebe, the only person in the world he really loves. He suggests he become a lawyer, and then he just writes this out. Like, he literally, what does he say? He literally reads, anyway, I keep picturing all these little kids playing some game in a big field of rye, and all thousands of little kids. Nobody's around, nobody big, I mean, except me. And I'm standing on the edge of some craggy cliff. What I have to do, I have to catch everybody if they start to go over the cliff. I mean, they are running, and they don't look where they are going. I have to come out from somewhere and catch them. That's all I do all day. I be the catcher in the rise.
Have you looked into Harry Nilsson at all by any chance?
I've heard his name. Was he a musician?
Harry Nilsson was John Lennon's best friend. In fact, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Lennon was kind of involved in a three-way relationship with another Asian woman besides Yoko Ono, and Harry Nilsson was also her lover as well. When they were living in LA, they were notorious drunks. And when Lennon, whatever happened to Lennon, Nilsson came out as a fierce advocate for gun control. And I was just looking up something, and I didn't mean to interrupt you here, but this is something maybe we want to talk about a little bit later. But there's a song that actually became popular by a guy by the name of Ross Jennings called "Catcher in the Rye." Do you know this
Oh,
song?
no, I don't. Never.
Anyway, he's also taking Everybody's Talking by Harry Nilsson, which is a song that is kind of related to Catcher in the Rye. You know, everybody's talking at me. I can't hear a word they say, which they used in the movie Midnight Cowboy, which of course takes place in New York City.
Right.
Anyway, I just thought I'd take your temperature on that.
I don't know. I just see more and more connections all the time. Like the Catcher in the Rye is mentioned in a song by who sang Sister Christian. It's like a hair band. They had a song about the Catcher in the Rye. So
Yeah. I know who that is. I can't remember it.
Midnight something.
I don't want to say Red Brighter. It's not Red Brighter.
It's in that same vein, like that same year.
Yeah. I know
But
this. Yeah.
There's references around. I keep finding more. The more I do this show, it just other people send me stuff too. Like, hey, have you heard that? Just like you. Like, have you heard this? No.
Night Ranger is the band.
Night Ranger.
Yeah.
Good memory.
All right.
So if we go back one more, this is Hinckley. This is Hinckley traveling around that same theme. The 4-day trip was a blur. He's headed out to D.C. to kill Reagan. The 4-day trip was a blur of fast food and brief stops: Las Vegas, Cheyenne, Chicago, Cleveland, Pittsburgh. Traveling through Utah, Hinckley awoke from a brief nap to find the bus hurtling through a massive snowstorm. He spent much of the trip slouched in a window seat, watching the scenery stream by or reading The Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger's novel of teenage angst and alienation. He identified with the story's main character, Holden Caulfield, but the book was also special to him because he knew that John Lennon's assassin had pulled it from his pocket and leafed through it moments after gunning down the rock and roll icon. Lennon, who had been killed 3.5 months earlier, was Hinckley's favorite musician. Even so, he sometimes felt he identified more with Lennon's killer than with Lennon himself.
Interesting.
So, and then who's promoting this book? Like, if we go back through George Bush's history, I mean, it's quite a history. But he's promoting Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. Why is Chapman and George Bush promoted? Why are they promoting this book? There was a marvelous book by Salinger called Catcher in the Rye. He says that in the 1995 interview.
That's crazy.
And then
Especially given the Hinckley connection with the Bush family.
Very good. Who would have benefited if Reagan died? Who was maybe one of the chief beneficiaries?
It would have
The
been
vice
George.
president, George Bush.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's like promoting a book that Hinckley identifies with, who reads and identifies with Chapman. Like he knew it, according to this other book that we just read from. Who else likes the book? This monster, Bill Gates.
Yeah.
He literally is writing this in 2013.
God.
You may note, go back there while I'll read it because it's something else. You may notice that there aren't any novels on my list this year. It's not that I don't enjoy fiction. I've read The Catcher in the Rye a bunch of times. It's one of my favorite books ever.
Wow.
So
That says everything.
this is Ruth, right? So we talked about that in the early show. Ruth is connected to Oahu. He literally is from there. And Fort Bragg. There's all these like connections. He's in Fort Bragg at weird times with all these other people who were involved in the deaths. If you remember the guy who drove down New Orleans who killed like 10 people, he had a connection to Fort Bragg. And then also Livelsberger, if you remember his name, that was the guy who blew up his Tesla truck at the Trump hotel.
Yeah, they both work from the same port and very similar timeline. Very interesting. And, and what are people doing with Teslas now?
Right. It's very strange.
Very strange.
Like, did they really know they were going after Musk that early? Like on the first, I think that was those two deaths. The guy who drove through New Orleans and then Livelsberger happened on the 1st of the 2025, right? Not that long ago.
No, not long ago at all.
This is Crooks, another suspicious guy, like a weird patsy or something. He was very lucky to, he died, right? So,
yeah.
The Catcher in the Rye theme in this movie, The Good Girl, so I included that.
Mm-hmm.
And we can go to the next one. There's another movie about Chapman people may not know about, but it's called Chapter 27. There's 26 chapters of Catcher in the Rye. And Leto does a really good job. He plays Chapman and all this mysterious stuff that he knows and how strange Chapman is reflected in this film if you want to watch it.
We could do a whole show on Jared Leto.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah.
But in this, another thing that he shows that Chapman had some kind of almost like an altar at his hotel, and included in that altar were pictures from The Wizard of Oz. So that's another one.
That's another one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's another one. So this is kind of breaking down the whole, like the Kind Valley. So Holden, Gracious Valley, or Holding something. Holden Caulfield is the name breakdown.
Mm-hmm.
Then go to the next one. Call. It's the significance of the call, being bored, historical, cultural beliefs, spiritual significance. Viewed as a spiritual or psychic ability, some folklore, the call was believed to bestow second sight and the ability to see in the future. I think was kind of creepy.
That's what happened to our guy, Ra Castaldo.
Who's that?
Ra's a semi-frequent guest. He's a very interesting character, multi-talented. He had the call over his face.
Wow.
And how he describes it is that when that happens, there's an intense production of DMT in the brain. Like DMT floods the brain when that happens. It's almost like a survival mechanism. And that DMT flooding of the brain at a very early stage of development has a marked effect on the individual in their lifetime.
Fascinating.
Yep.
This is just Ken Silva's writing about how strange Ruth is.
Mm-hmm.
Like these guys are all traveling. Ruth is supposedly like owes child support. He's able to travel from Hawaii to Miami to Florida to Ukraine. Like he's seen in the Ukraine, supporting the Ukraine thing. Like it's so strange. This guy has the strangest travel regimen, much like Mangione.
Right.
This is Mangione. The NYPD claims to have found the CEO's shooter's backpack near the carousel in Central Park, exactly where The Catcher in the Rye ends.
That's crazy. That is crazy.
That's crazy. And so the inspiration of Travis Bickle was a guy by the name of Arthur Bremer.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people may not know his name, but Bremer was a guy who shot George Wallace. And the Wallace was an interesting type thing because Wallace was a competitor, I think, in Republican. I think if he died, it would have solidified either George Bush or somebody or Nelson Rockefeller as president. Like he was a competitor on the Republican ticket. But
Yeah. Let's see. I always get him confused with Lester Maddox. But George Wallace was running for president, I believe, in what was it?
70s sometime.
Well, he ran in 68, I think 72, and he gets shot and he's paralyzed and he's in a wheelchair after that. And obviously he's not as effective as he once was. But yeah, that's another really interesting shooting. They don't take him out completely, but he's paralyzed.
72.
And, yeah, 72. Yeah.
No, he came out as a Democratic candidate, and that he was supposedly a moderate. But if you want to play, maybe I don't know if this is a good idea because it might mess up our audio. But this is Bremer. We'll see how similar Bremer is to Travis Bickle here. That's Bremer right there. He's literally clapping. Watch this. Like literally jumps in and starts shooting. And this whole sequence was done. And then you had this whole situation where, let me see if I can bring this one up. This is from the film that was inspired Hinckley. Let's see if I can get this to play.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Good. All right, great.
See if you can play this one. It's literally they clearly saw the inspiration, got inspiration from.
I hope you people are enjoying this show because I don't think it's going to make it through. We'll have at least 1 or 2 copyright claims, so that's all right. Let's keep going.
Today I say to you, we have reached the turning point.
It's very similar. I don't know if we show this whole thing because, like you said, I think it's just important that this is kind of like happening in Manhattan, and it's emulating what happened between Bremer and Wallace. Yeah. So these are all kind of the names at that time: homosexual, sexual intercourse, Prince, rubbernecks. All these words were very, naughty for that time. That were in this book. But this is Frances Stoner Saunders. She wrote The Cultural Cold War, CIA, in the World of Arts and Letters. And there's something in there about them supporting art authors like J.D. Salinger.
Interesting.
Yeah, so a CIA cutout was supporting J.D. Salinger. So I think there's more to the story, so you can see it highlighted there. It's basically our spender to open the literary pages to a new generation of American writers like Saul Bellow, J.D. Salinger, Truman Capote, and Shirley Ann Gates. So that's Bremer right there. That's what he looked like. That was the guy who shoots Wallace. And it's kind of, Bickle was partially based on real life assassin Arthur Bremer. So Hinckley to Bickle to Bremer is real. Like, it's incredible.
That's wild.
There's Bremer in a headlock. And I have a video. I don't know if I want to play it, but his parents said, this is totally out of character. We have no idea what Arthur Bremer was doing shooting this person, shooting Wallace. We don't even know why he was there.
Do you think he did it?
I think he shot him. Yeah.
Okay.
I think so. I think that one is real. I mean, I really do. But anyway, one of the interesting elements of this is that Bremer had a diary. And there's a question. There's actually interesting because some people claim that the diary is fake and was written by E. Howard Hunt of Watergate fame.
Right.
CIA.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I think the shooting took place on the 15th. But here's Bremer writing. He went to go see Clockwork Orange, which is about mind control, right? The Vudovic method or whatever, if you remember the famous picture of Alex DeLarge getting, trained or whatever to watch. He basically is getting drugs to make him retch at the sight of violence. But Bremer's watching this. He goes, Milwaukee, saw Clockwork Orange and thought about killing Wallace all through the picture, fantasizing myself as Alec, but without my brother, just a little of the old ultra violence. I've decided Wallace would have the honor of, what would you call it? So,
Wow.
yeah, really crazy. So we know that he's, this is the whole story. Like there's some kind of intel connection between these bigwigs, according to Seymour Hersh and Bremer. So he says Seymour Hersh claimed that the secret recordings of Nixon proves that in hours of the assassination attempt, the president and the top aide dispatched political operatives more. Howard Hunt's super complex, involved Bay of Pigs, domestic operative of CIA. They always like misstate what he's really up to Milwaukee with plans to surreptitiously enter Bremer's apartment and plant the campaign literature for Democratic contender George McGovern. According to Hersh, Hunt aborted the operation because the FBI had sealed off Bremer's apartment prior to his arrival. In his memoir, Hunt reports that the day after the assassination attempt, he received a call from Chuck Colson, asking him to break into Bremer's apartment and plant leftist literature to connect him to the Democrats. Hunt recalls that he was highly skeptical of the plan due to the apartment being guarded by the FBI, but investigated the feasibility of it anyway to Colson's existence. G. Gordon Liddy also discusses this in his memoir. So, like they're talking like these are high-level operatives that's associated with Bremer. So why are they associated with some kind of so-called random shooter? It's a picture of Mangione, right?
He is a hero. He's a culture hero now, isn't he?
He sure is. I mean, deny, depose, defend, or whatever. And he makes this statement. But one of the interesting things about Mangione, which we'll get to, is that who did he admire? Ted Kaczynski, right? So he read Ted Kaczynski's own papers and really admired him. Well, if you look in the past of Ted Kaczynski, he was a subject of MK Ultra. He was definitely in a 3-year program by a guy, by another bigwig psychiatrist named Murray. He was involved in behavioral modification.
It's at Harvard, right?
Yeah, he was belittled at Harvard for 3 years. They tried to break down his personality.
Mm-hmm.
There's absolutely no question about it. So, Unabomber's dies, but he was like, this is a subject of MK Ultra. There's absolutely no question about it. Or whatever you want to call it. But this is Mangione's writings admiring industrial society and its future by Kaczynski, right?
Interesting.
I'll go back there. I'll read it to you. This is what Mangione wrote. Had the balls to recognize that peaceful protest has gotten us absolutely nowhere. And at the end of the day, he's probably right. Oil barons haven't listened to any environmentalists, but they feared him. When all forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. So he's taking the violent route, much like all these other guys. Accused Ivy League killer was not United Healthcare customer. Weird. We don't know why he did it. I don't think we know that he had these ideas, but why did he fly all the way to Manhattan to kill that guy? And how did he know that
where he was
at 7 a.m. in the morning?
Yeah, that to me, this Mangione thing, I've looked into it. It is so freaking bizarre because a lot of people were saying, oh, it's about his mother and she was in such incredible pain. And his family was stinking rich, connected to the Pelosi family out of Maryland, right? They are like another crime family. They had their own kind of institutional healthcare with these, senior homes, which got universally horrible scores for treating elders. And if his mother was in that much pain, they had that much money to be able to take her to any doctor that she needed to or wanted to go to. This part has never made any sense at all to me. Why this guy? Why United Health? To your point, he never used them. His mother theoretically in pain. She could have had her own, white label healthcare given to her. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. You see this real serious personality change. I guess he had a back operation, so he was in the hospital, but the guy went to a $40,000 a year high school. Like he went to a real prep school.
Oh,
Yes. Didn't he go to Penn or something like that? I forgot what his college.
I believe he did go to Penn, which, by the way, is I think one of Donald Trump's schools that he went
I
to.
think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, the Mangione thing makes zero.
He was
sense.
working as like a VC guy in Palo Alto, so he's in there with all the kind of technocrats and young guys. He
Right.
knows stuff.
Yep.
He's well read.
Yep.
He was the valedictorian of his class. Like that's incredible.
Right. He gave his speech. He was on the soccer team. So this guy was sort of the modern, 21st century all-American boy in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think
Do you know the story about the family bought this really, really big resort connected to this golf course? Do you know about that story?
not in detail, but I know that they had property holdings.
Major property holdings. It's really, really significant. And again, the other thing that's weird about Mangione is the corporate structure of the family and the businesses, because his father and mother are kind of the sort of the patriarch and matriarch, but the family, like his aunts and uncles, are all a part of it as well. And so all these various portions of the business are kind of segmented, and it's really clannish, this whole thing with the Mangiones. And
it's a weird story.
It's
man.
weird. It's really, really
the
weird.
Mangione story makes no sense.
No sense.
I mean, this is a perfect breakdown. As somebody posted this from 4chan, but it's just all there. What happened, bros? That's okay. So this is the guy Murray who overlooked Kaczynski, and you should go back and look at his history because he goes back to doing psychological profiles on Hitler. So he wrote The Mind of Hitler or whatever it was called, but he was part of it. It was known as the Langer Report, but Murray was involved in that. It's kind of interesting. But Murray then went back to Harvard, Henry Murray. There it is. In 1938, Murray was recruited by the U.S. government to create a psychological profile of Adolf Hitler. He left Harvard temporarily to serve in the U.S. Army during the Second World War, working with American intelligence agencies to help assess the psychological fitness of their agents. So these guys are all involved in these things. This guy overlaps with possibly with Salinger. Who knows? But this was what they did to Kaczynski. A lot of people don't know the details of what they were. This pressure group that Kaczynski was in. But Murray's intellectual curiosity often pushed boundaries. His most controversial work began in 1959 with the study on stress responses. So he had already been doing this in World War II, involving 22 Harvard undergraduates, weird number, including Kaczynski. This experiment, conducted over 3 years, aimed to understand how individuals withstand psychological pressure, a topic perhaps informed by Murray's wartime experience, I would say so. The study, often dubbed the multiform assessments of personality development, who knows what that actually meant, was deceptively framed to participants as a benign exploration of beliefs. Kaczynski, a brilliant but socially awkward sophomore when he joined in 1959, was one of the subjects. Participants were asked to write essays detailing their personal philosophies and values. These essays were then used against them in a series of grueling interrogation. So you see this interrogation theme again, right? This interrogation theme to Salinger.
Goes back to Salinger. Exactly. Right. Yeah.
So you're seeing this overlap. It's really intense. Anyway, you can go on and read that, but it's just the fact that Murray's related to studying. It's in from this book, Harvard and the Unabomber, an education of an American terrorist. He really was a terrorist. And then these are things. This is Saint Mangione now. He's literally on the sides of trucks and walls of buildings, and he's seen as almost maybe there's people who saw Kaczynski as a hero too, right? Somebody who took action.
Well, listen, if you read Kaczynski's manifesto, you'd be hard pressed to say he wasn't wrong, because he was way out in front of where technology was going, how it was going to dehumanize people. And I think that he was on it. Like Kaczynski was kind of on it. Mangione, he's a second-rate imitator. Okay.
Wow.
He needed a better manifesto. Sorry. But look, he's sanctified.
Right. No, I think he's more hero than rogue, honestly, because people. Do you know the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States is medical bills? So
Yes.
I think that I think that he's pled not guilty, according to one of the commentators. I think that if he gets in front of a jury, nobody's going to convict him. Somebody's going to go, yeah, I don't know, man. Maybe he was pissed. The weird selection process of the victim, whose name I can't remember right now, is really strange.
Yes.
But yeah, the Free Luigi billboard, denied to pose defend or whatever it was just like written on the bullets. But that's pretty much my presentation. I mean,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is absolutely stellar.
Here's like one more thing is just the connection. Trying to bring it up to the present day is this this file right here. Let's see if I can do this. You can bring this up. But these guys all go back to Fort Bragg. This is like crazy stuff. And like one of these guys, Livelsberger's background is really weird. I don't know if you're able to share that. There you go. And Fort Bragg has been in the news. There's so much sketchy stuff coming out of murders, drug dealing, all kinds of dark stuff. Like Fort Bragg is off the charts.
You know, what's really interesting about the guy from New Orleans, who's originally from Texas, and he's black, but they claim that he had converted to Islam. And then when you look at some of his pictures, it's almost like they're photoshopping him to look more Arabic or Semitic. And he's like a brother from Texas. And it's like really weird. I'm kind of watching it. It's like, no, that guy is not from the Middle East. He's from freaking Texas. And he may have converted to Islam, but they were going out of their way to make him look Semitic. Very strange stuff.
That's very strange too. Like I've heard or read stuff about him that no Muslim saw him in a mosque, and he was a drinker, which is definitely not Muslim.
Right, exactly.
So like,
exactly,
there are people who fall away from the faith. I mean, Christianity, Judaism, whatever. So
yeah.
I don't. Yeah, Bragg is home to Army Saab's command. That's right.
Yeah.
So this stuff is still happening to today, and just some of these overlaps.
Yeah.
Things like that. And I can show, if you want to do one more, I can show you Operation Mind Control, where they Mission Mind Control, where they literally show, and this following video is so crazy because this is actually Chapman's doctor who is talking here, CIA associated doctor, who's saying, how can you make a mind control assassin? He's like, okay, you just got to do this. So let's see if I can bring this up. It's kind of a longer video file. If you can bring up Mission Mind Control, maybe
sure,
get that to play.
Absolutely.
His name is Klein. So there's you and Cameron. This is everything that we were talking about that earlier. Everything at McGill. This is a victim of you and Cameron, but we can just go to Klein and come back. This is the German interrogations of what the Germans were up to. But we're going to get, this is another good tie-in as the Manchurian Candidate. This is Klein right here, but this is also Gittinger, who ties into the JFK assassination. This is the doctor of Laramie. If you remember how JFK, the movie, starts with Oliver Stone, a woman gets thrown from a car. Mm-hmm. This is her doctor, literal CIA doctor. And then she died mysteriously. But watch this. This is Klein right here. This is him. This is Mark Chapman's doctor.
Something totally impossible seem absolutely credible.
I would say the answer is yes, but there are many qualifications to that.
Dr. Milton Klein, a psychologist, a clinical and experimental hypnotist, and unpaid consultant to the CIA.
The qualifications would be the subject selected to produce the kind of behavior that you wish, the amount of time, the procedures that are utilized, and the motivations of the people who are designing, executing, and administering the procedures. You're asking whether an individual can be, under hypnosis, influenced, coerced, persuaded, shaped to perform an antisocial act, or a destructive act, or an act of violence. My answer would be yes.
Captain Marco, will you be good enough to lend Raymond your pistol, please? Yes, ma'am.
Thanks, Ben.
Sure, kid. Shoot Bobby Raymond. Through the forehead.
Yes, ma'am.
How valuable a tool can hypnosis be in the intelligence field?
None whatsoever. It has absolutely no use because nobody's ever been able to do that I know of.
He's lying.
Yeah, he's totally lying.
Operationally feasible way. I'm not in any way saying that hypnosis doesn't take place. I'm not saying there's nothing to it.
I would say that most government agencies concerned with intelligence operations have been looking to hypnosis as a tool for a variety of purposes, one of which is to carry out and to execute certain intelligence operations on a basis where they would not have to rely completely on some of their own emotional reactions. Actually,
Would that entail murder?
It could, if you consider that an act of killing someone under circumstances of war is murder. I think one has to define what that means.
Under circumstances of peace.
Under circumstances of peace, it would be murder.
Another former CIA agent says that Fidel Castro at one time was considered as a possible target for a Manchurian candidate.
Castro was naturally our discussion point. Could you get somebody gung-ho enough that they would go in and get him? But if you have 100% control of a guy, you have 100% dependency. If something happens and you haven't programmed it in, you've got a problem.
So in the end, it was decided that a Manchurian candidate was not feasible. But the search for mind control continued. But could the mind be controlled? Perhaps not. But is human behavior predictable? In this area, the CIA did make a significant breakthrough. A personality assessment system designed by the agency's chief psychologist, John Gittinger. It comes close to being able to predict how humans will behave.
It's really a descriptive system, an attempt to try to...
Anyway, Klein, if you watch that again, they ask him, can you make somebody do something antisocial? He's like, yes, under the right circumstances. And he's talking, and he went in, like there's records of him going into the jail and talking to Chapman. I mean, it's off the charts. And it's another interesting element is this whole theme of the Manchurian Candidate, which we saw clips of that film, right? Which
I've seen the whole movie multiple times. So
it's brilliant.
It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I mean, there's so much hidden in plain sight stuff there.
Well, so here's the thing: is that they lay it out. Do you know that? Do you know who William Joseph Bryan was?
The name is familiar.
He supposedly was the kind of hypnotist who was friends with Frank Sinatra, who was the kind of understate. Well, in the book, that Fenton Bresler book that we mentioned earlier, or I mentioned earlier, which I was quoting from all that stuff. In that Fenton Bresler book, there is a quote. Let me see if I can bring it up. That the person who was the consultant on the Manchurian Candidate, maybe you can bring that up. Let's see if I can highlight it.
Do you know the Frank Sinatra movie Suddenly?
Yeah, we can talk about that too.
Yeah.
I know a lot. I know a lot about Sinatra because what a lot of people don't know, what they should know, is that movie, The Manchurian Candidate, was made because Sinatra and JFK had an agreement to make it.
Interesting.
It's part of the JFK, which is in the news today. It's part of the 7 Days in May, which was shot on the White House door. The 7 Days of May and the Manchurian Candidate are part of JFK culture creation and knowledge. Like, if you can bring this up, I don't know.
I'm having a hard time now again with StreamYard. Hold on.
Yeah, it's such a pain in the ass. I'm so sick of StreamYard. I'm sorry, everybody.
No,
but
it's
anyway,
really.
I'll read this. Oh, there you go. I'll highlight. I think you can see the highlight. Walter Bauer, classic book, Operation Mind Control. Walter Bauer, in his book Operation Mind Control, writes that it may have been a Dr. William Jennings Bryan who died in March 1977 at 50 of a heart attack. That's associated with Candy Brown, which is another story. 15 years earlier, Dr. Bryan had been the technical consultant for the film Manchurian Candidate. He was friends with Sinatra. They were both part of when Sinatra was coming up, something called, it was the Jimmy Dorsey Band. Have you ever heard Tommy Dorsey? Have you ever heard of Tommy Dorsey?
Of course.
That was when Sinatra was just coming up after in World War II. He was part of the Dorsey Band with William Joseph Bryan Jr. It's not Jennings, it's Joseph.
Just William Joseph Bryan.
They were old friends, and there's ties between Joseph Bryan to a lot of attorneys and stuff like that. And supposedly he sat at the JFK trial of Jim Garrison, which is like really crazy. But anyway, the Manchurian Candidate, a lot of people don't know this, but it was basically the gestation, the seedling, the acorn of it took place at Hyannisport, right? The Kennedy compound, where Sinatra, JFK was a voracious reader. He liked the Bond books. He liked to read that kind of like
spy stuff.
Yeah. Condon's book came out in 1959. And he came to the attention of them. They're like, hey, we should make this. And Sinatra was like, they were talking. And he's like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And they made that movie. It came out in 1962. And those were big actors at the time. I think it was Vivian Leigh had just come off of, was it not Vivian Leigh? Was that right? Janet Leigh came off of Psycho.
Angela Lansbury's in it.
Oh yeah. Lawrence Harvey. But the real drive was Sinatra. Sinatra, it was a 2.2. It was budgeted $2.2 million. $1 million was Sinatra's pay, and it was through his company. He had a company at the time. I've got it in my notes. It's I forgot it. He had a company, so it was like handled by his company. But it's really interesting. Like, there's interesting stories. There's a letter that exists from Sinatra to JFK. It says, Jack, this picture's a wild one. Condon's book, it's got guts. What do you think? JFK replied, Frank, I love the book. Go make it. So literally JFK is like
greenlighting Manchurian Candidate. And there's a very weird kind of phonetic connection between Lee Harvey Oswald and Lawrence Harvey.
Oh, interesting. That is weird. Which is a fake name.
Right.
Lawrence Harvey had like I think he was a Jewish guy from like Russia or something.
Yeah, I think so too. And it's like
who died young, strange.
Bizarre Hall of Mirrors. And of course, have you seen the movie Domino?
No.
Domino is about Lawrence Harvey's daughter. And she becomes a bounty hunter in LA. And I believe it's Keira Knightley plays Domino in the movie Domino. Mickey Rourke is in it. A number of fairly well-known actors. Tony Scott directed it. It's kind of a banger of a movie, and like Domino Harvey comes off a little kind of MK Ultra-y, right? She's like this.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's grown up in LA, and she winds up. This is all true story, by the way. She winds up hanging out with this notorious bounty hunter, and they get into a lot of hot situations. And
this is a recent film. Is that 2005? Is that right?
Yeah, you should watch it.
I got you.
This would tie a lot of loose ends up for you, or maybe open up more portals at the same time, right? Because now it's like, oh, look at this, his offspring, kind of MK Ultra,
right?
She goes wild here and becomes this, really adrenaline pumped bounty huntress. Now, of course, they take a lot of theatrical license with the movie. but a lot of the stuff from the movie is actually pulled from her life. So very strange. Yeah. The other thing about that scene in The Manchurian Candidate is that I believe he's Chinese, perhaps North Korean, the guy who's instructing Lawrence Harvey to shoot his fellow officer. He shows up again later on Hawaii Five-0 as Wo Fat. And there is a scene from a show where he takes Jack Lord, right? The Jack Lord character, and puts him in a freaking mind control situation.
Wow.
With sensory deprivation.
Wow.
And he's hooked up to these breathing tubes and suspended over this water in a pool with his blinders on his eyes, and he can't hear anything. Like, this is so weird. Like, they just fast forward him and they turn him into a supervillain. He's doing the same thing on Hawaii Five-0.
Wow. Yeah, you can see some of the pictures here online. I just pulled them up. So he's literally talking to Jack Lord. Wow, that's wild.
Yeah, really weird, right?
One
and again, hold on now. Let's not just fly over this. Where is this taking place?
New York City.
Hawaii,
right. Hawaii and New York City. There's a sequence in Manchurian Candidate. If you remember, there's the antagonistic senators, right?
Yeah.
There's the one that's his mother's husband.
Yeah.
There's the other one he's dating his daughter. And that takes place he's coming out of Central Park to kill them. Like, literally. And so you have Central Park. You've got Mangione. You've got Holden Caulfield. You've got
Mark David Chapman.
And you've got the character Shaw. Wasn't that his name, Shaw?
I think so.
I think the character's Harvey's name is Raymond Shaw. Same thing.
Interesting.
And then suddenly, before we forget, that was done by Sinatra, and we know that Lee Harvey Oswald watched that, which is about killing a president, or supposedly.
Yeah, this is like one of the most bizarre things. I'm going to show people, if they're not familiar with this movie, it is Frank Sinatra playing a presidential assassin. It's wild. Absolutely. I guess you could watch it on YouTube for free.
Here's the other lore about the Manchurian Candidate. It came out in 1962. Frankenheimer, for people who don't know, was the director. So these people are all selected by Sinatra, by the way. Frankenheimer selected, the guy who wrote the screenplay. These are all selected. And then Kennedy, Sinatra's very close friends to the Kennedys. He's hanging out. Peter Lawford is an intermediary between the Rat Pack and the Camelot, right? And even in 1960, so Sinatra is helping campaign for JFK, close friends. He rewrites his song High Hopes. The lyrics are now pro JFK. And when JFK became president, he was the one who organized a pre-inaugural ball. So there's the standard, if you remember, that famous ask not speech of Kennedy. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. The night before that, Sinatra had a fundraiser called the pre-inaugural ball with, he had all these stars: Ethel Merman, Harry Belafonte, Nat King Cole, Gene Kelly, Milton Berle. All these characters were there, and they raised a lot of money. And he was close friends with Kennedy, Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. So when the assassination, which the movie is about killing the presidential contender, right? Manchurian Candidate. When the assassination of JFK actually happened in Dallas, November 22nd, 1963, Sinatra, who owned the movie, owned the rights, pulled it. So it wasn't seen for 25 years. And then it was re-released in 1998. So it actually was kind of gone for a whole quarter century. It was re-shown, and then it was another success. It made more money, and now it's kind of like hung out in lore of like a paranoid, like Parallax View type movies.
Parallax! I was going to bring the Parallax View up. Oh my God,
another great film.
7
Days in May, which is really a political theory thing, which like another one that was okayed by JFK. Like this guy wanted it done. There are scenes from 7 Days in May which is about a military overthrow, attempted military overthrow, which happened, in my opinion, part of it, of the JFK assassination was a military overthrow.
Yeah.
But it took place, some of the scenes were shot on the White House with the knowledge of JFK. So that's weird how this is another kind of fusing of this whole theme of the top. What we talk about is how fiction and reality have overlapped.
I want to play the trailer for Suddenly. I've queued that up for people. So this is the movie that was theoretically came out in 1954, and it's where Frank Sinatra plays a presidential assassin. Here we go.
Special train number 1019 carrying the President of the United States will arrive suddenly 5 p.m. today with Secret Service operatives arriving 115 Carney, Acting Chief, U.S. Secret Service.
It's a funny sort of feeling to have control of life and death. You could miss a man if you had a mind to, or you could kill him dead in his tracks. And that made you kind of God. And I liked it. Without the gun, I'm nothing. And I never had anything before I got one. I was somebody. I'm no traitor, Sheriff. I won a Silver Star. Mrs. Benson?
Yes?
For heaven's sake, FBI. Nobody leaves the house until we do. If anybody wanted to kill the president, he could do a beautiful job of it right from this window of yours.
Incredible.
How it's just like,
absolutely incredible.
What do you say about something
Can't
like
make
that?
it up.
Right?
You just can't make it up.
So crazy. So I evolved this theory that Frank Sinatra is one of the most evil people of the 20th century.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, because his relationship with the Rat Pack, Las Vegas, connection to the mob, getting involved with Kennedy, bringing the mob into Kennedy's life, helping Kennedy get elected because of the mob involvement, also through his father. But Frank Sinatra plays a huge role. As you mentioned earlier, the whole Hollywood tie-in with Kennedy, which ultimately leads to the assassination of Kennedy. I believe that Nixon won the 1960 election. And then
I think you're right. They fixed it in West Virginia and Chicago.
Chicago, exactly. So Frank Sinatra is very much enmeshed in that piece of American history. Also, consider me a prude, although, look, I've partied, I've had fun. I've been to Vegas, but his promotion of Vegas, his relentless promotion of Vegas and booze culture and gambling culture, I don't think is really healthy. And it became kind of synonymous with a certain part of America from like the late 50s till about, I don't know, maybe 65, when all of a sudden we're dealing with, Laurel Canyon and psychedelia, the hippie era. So I think that he is not a good person. And he's, as a soul, he's very corrupt. Now, there are stories about his generosity. Like one day Eli Wallach was having heart issues and Frank Sinatra sent people over to his house and took him to a hospital, said, "Why are you doing this? Who's doing this?" Well, Frank Sinatra's paying for it. He didn't even know Frank Sinatra, right? And he asked Frank Sinatra, "Why did you do this?" He said, "Well, I think you're a really good actor. I like your acting." So he's got these stories of generosity, which offset a little bit of his, what I would call inherent evil. I think he's inherently evil. And he is a corrupter. I think he's a social corrupter. And it doesn't mean that I don't find him interesting, and it doesn't mean I don't like some of his music. I mean, you could pick anybody. Like, I like Led Zeppelin's music, but if you dig down deep enough, you'll find a lot of, stuff crawling around the world of Led Zeppelin. I mean, we kind of live in a corrupt world in a lot of ways, but I can objectively say, I don't think Frank Sinatra was a force of good. And in fact, I think he is one of these characters who's romanticized, the chairman, New York, New York. When in actuality, he's kind of at the core of whittling away of our culture, both in terms of trust, politics, and the promotion. And again, I don't want to come off as like a fucking, I'm sorry. I don't want to come off as like a Christian but the promotion of Sin City with Las Vegas. And that's why I think he's like covertly very evil.
That's interesting. He's involved in a lot of stuff. I mean, I think that Marilyn Monroe was with him at Cal Neva, like before she died mysteriously.
Right. Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of weird deaths, and he was always fighting. And like, yeah, he's like they covered up the mob stuff. That's apparently why the kind of Kennedy family and him kind of parted ways, is they got sick of how really close he was to the mafia.
I love Steve. Steve always brings at least one great witticism per show. Can't spell Sinatra without sin, frankly.
Yeah, there you go.
Look at that. In the name.
Yeah, no, it's he's something else.
Yeah, yeah. All right. When are we going to have the next Manchurian Candidate?
Fairly soon. I don't know. It depends. It depends who's running the government, but it's been crazy, man. The real history of the United States, I think, hasn't been written in totally with all this information that's available now. So it's kind of like, and even there's even videos of Trump. He doesn't quite get that. He thinks that at least what he says publicly, you have to take with a grain of salt. But he says publicly, he thinks that, he's trying to get to the bottom of these recent assassination attempts. But he thinks that they're potentially just lone nuts. And I think he's nuts for thinking that. Because you see the strain of these guys coming out of weird places. And the fact that Mangione and Ruth both kind of came out of Oahu is really crazy, man. It's really crazy.
So I have a theory that that the next major false flag psyop would be the successful assassination of Donald Trump. Now, it may not be real, but it would be, in our minds, successful. Or at least in many people's minds, not our minds. But I feel like we're kind of verging in that direction. I have a number of different reasons why. But if you wanted to get people really fired up about joining the army and being a part of the war effort, it would take something monumental to move that needle. More than 9/11, more than some kind of bomb or something going off somewhere. But if you removed, or they removed, Donald Trump under the theater of an assassination, that would do it. That would do it. Hit it back to something like the Houthis or Iran or somebody in the Middle East, and all of a sudden you're going to have, your red-blooded American males wanting to follow Pete Hegseth, into war, right? I don't think it's far-fetched. I've always felt like J.D. Vance is going to finish out Trump's term. I don't think he's going to finish out the term. And again, I have my reasons. A lot of them are astrological. I don't really want to spend a whole lot of time getting into it. And I'm not sure if we're that far away. Let me bring up one other point here. This is something that came to my mind. I'd love your take on this. Have you followed Signalgate at all?
A little bit. I mean, some guy got into a Signal chat, which I'm surprised they're even having a Signal chat, in my opinion. Don't you have better ways to communicate?
Well, this is one of the things I brought up. Like, come on. You've got all these tech bros. You can't even make a frickin' encrypted system. Like, these guys could do it in their sleep if they're that smart. The thing that really came out for me in that leaked Signal chat conversation is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance comes across as the voice of reason.
Interesting.
Right? He says, I'm not so sure this will be in our best interests. We may really want to think about how this is going to affect the region, the economy. Like Vance is like pushing back. And I'm like, maybe this is all theater. Maybe this is to get out this idea that J.D. Vance is the voice of reason. He's the voice of calm, which in many ways he is and has been. Like it helps him with his credibility. Even Thomas Massey commented on this on X, where he retweeted Vance's concerns about going to war. And a lot of people have not been sold on J.D. Vance because he's kind of very much like Obama in some ways, if you really look at his past. But I'm like, oh, isn't this interesting? J.D. Vance comes out looking really good in this supposedly leaked text exchange. Well, he sounds very presidential, actually. He sounds very even-handed, even more so than Donald Trump. So when the time comes and Vance has to step in and take on the role of president, people will have had some trust, faith, and credibility invested in
He's
this
the
guy.
sane voice in the room, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. A lot of this stuff, they're so careful about all this stuff. They've been in politics forever. It's hard for me to believe that these are
my chat is so on this stuff. Look at this.
Yeah.
It's theater, fake leak. It's all fake until the bombs drop. Yes, Signal Gate, all stage. How could they convene at 24? This is that is really good, right? This is real. This is something positive. That even though we're a small group of people in a slice in a subsection of society, people can see it. Gives me some hope.
It's all theater, man. There's a lot of theater going on, but it's good to be paranoid. This is like a paranoid take.
There's a healthy dose of paranoia that we all have to have. How could we not have a little healthy dose of paranoia? Right?
Right. Think about how many of these books and TV shows are all puppeteered. I think Catcher in the Rye is a puppeteered book. It's very sophisticated. It's not just to kind of summarize. It's not some kind of narrative that's written by an amateur. It's way too literarily sophisticated. He's bouncing around. There are times when he's so distracted. He's talking to Phoebe, and then 2 pages will be of him talking while he's in the presence of Phoebe. But like it morphs time and space. It's not a direct linear thought. And then he'll bounce back and start talking to Phoebe again. He's schizophrenic. And I think that these kind of like different states, psychological states, are being portrayed in this book that somebody would have to know. Like it's not like somebody sophisticated is involved in this book. And it may have been Salinger, but I get the sense that there's a lot more hands involved in the Catcher in the Rye. And that's why it's a trigger mechanism for these kind of killers and things like that, is because it has these code words and it has this negativity and it has this dissociativeness and this depersonalizational themes. And that's what you have to do to commit murders, and this very aggressive catcher mentality.
Right.
It's not accidental.
Real quick, we probably don't have time to really dive into this, but what is your take on One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
It's another one I want to cover because I know the story, and that's another psych case, an MK Ultra kind of type thing. It took place in a mental institution. That's where the guy worked, whose name I can't remember right
Ken
now.
Kesey.
Ken Kesey, who then became a real culture creator, right?
He becomes a culture creator, and then he drops out.
Much like Salinger, right?
Well, I think he realized, to Kesey's credit, he realized he was being used. Wow. And he's from Oregon originally, goes to Stanford, and he's there at Stanford hanging out in the psych ward, which is where he's getting his ideas for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
He was actually, I used to play golf at the Veterans Hospital where he worked, which was very close to Stanford. It was off of, I can't remember the road, but I think it was in Menlo Park.
Menlo
But
Park.
they were all connected. There was all kinds of VA centers back in the day.
Was it like Sand Hill Road or something like that? Or
That was the one. That's the Stanford VA. But I think he
Right.
was at the one in Menlo Park. I could be wrong. But they all had these kind of golf courses, 9-hole golf courses when we were kids.
Right.
You could get on there and play without paying for money. We were terrible.
Yeah.
But nobody cared because nobody,
Right.
the patients didn't use them. And I remember what's really strange in a memory, one of the memories I have from, I'm 56, from like 45 years ago, is we'd be playing golf and we'd see guys from the VA with the white outfits lined up going somewhere. And they were all, we used to make fun, like, it's terrible. Like, we're not very nice. We didn't say anything, but like, those guys are all on drugs, you know, like, 'cause
Yeah.
they acted like automatons.
Well, I mean, that's where Kesey got his LSD. They were doing LSD experiments with the psych patients. And so he and his buddy were taking the acid, and this is where they were doing the acid tests over in La Honda, where the Kesey house was. Wow,
What's
this is
that?
such
The
a
Kool-Aid acid test, but I forgot that author too.
Tom Wolfe. Tom
Thanks,
Wolfe.
yeah, you're better at that.
So
Maybe that's our next show. You're laying the groundwork for the
well, we
next
could that would be.
I would read that book and movie and see like what's going on in the history.
Well, in a weird like sync world that we're living in now, I rewatched the movie The Game by David Fincher. Do you know this movie?
Huh?
It's an incredible movie, and it's a movie that I'm actually going to recommend to my locals group because it's based on the Tower card, which is ruled by Mars, which is the ruler of Aries. And so we're in Aries season now. So I was going to recommend The Game for the folks in the locals. I'll recommend it to anybody here. It's a great movie. What's really weird is like all of a sudden, Michael Douglas shows up like here, like not here, but in the media space. Like we haven't seen him for a while. And all of a sudden he does this video. I just watched The Game. He just shows up. And what does he talk about? He talks about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, because I believe he was the producer of that movie.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was talking about the movie and the book. I'm like, this is so freaking weird. I just watched The Game and I just typed in Michael Douglas and there he is. Hi, it's been a while, but I'd like to let you know that I'm all alive. I'm alive, and I'd like to recommend a couple of books for you to read. He's also making a bit of a political commentary about the times that we're in. Let me see if I can find it. It's a trip. Michael Douglas. Hold on. All right. Let me see if we just found this here. Hold on. It's right here. So it came up 2 weeks ago. Although I just saw The Game about a week ago. So about a week before The Game, I watched it. Let me just play this. Just out of the freaking blue, here's Michael Douglas. Hold on. Where's the volume? Here we go.
I like a bird in hibernation. Now this is a new world out there. We're allies with the Russians. But they've been trying to destroy us for the last 75 years. Anyway, I just want to blow my own horn for a second. This year is the 50th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Written by Ken Kesey. The book was the author, and directed by Milos Forman. Lovely movie. If you haven't had a chance to read the book or see the picture, I would really encourage it. Another one who's a lot younger, 25th anniversary, is Wonder Boys, which was written by Michael Chabon and directed by Curtis Hanson, and is one of my particular favorites. It's not seen by that many people, so I feel like reading a couple of good books and then seeing a couple of good movies. Cuckoo's Nest and Wonder Boys couldn't be worse. Thank you.
Isn't that weird?
Yes. I haven't seen him in a decade, it seems like.
Right? And he just shows up, and here we go, 50th anniversary of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Wild.
Yeah.
We made it 2 hours for 159.
Yeah.
159,
Yeah.
18.
Well, thanks for coming back on, William.
Great
This
to be
is
with you.
this is great. I always enjoy your contributions here. Thorough, stellar, well thought out, connected. Let's do another show. Let's get into the Cuckoo's Nest world.
Yeah.
Ken Kesey, the 1960s, the Players, the Bay Area.
Yeah.
That's where I grew up.
I was at City Lights 2 or 3 weeks ago, famous bookstore in San Francisco.
I know City Lights.
Yeah. And then like all the stuff is there. All the beat poets are there. And the guy who inspired, it's Kerouac. And the guy who was on the bus with Kesey, who was driving everything.
Neil Cassidy.
Yeah. It was all
I used to drink at the Olympia right next door, right in that alley all the time.
I think it's the Kerouac Alley now.
It is Kerouac Alley. Yeah.
So.
Oh, that'd be great. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's put a pin on it in the future. And hey, check out William Ramsey Investigates.com. That's his website. You can follow him on Twitter. You can check out his books. Are you working on a new book, William?
Well, I never divulge if I am. I've got a lot of projects, but I do have over 1,300 episodes of my podcast, William Ramsey Investigates. So go check those out. But I have a couple things in the hopper. Hopefully they'll be released soon, but I'll let you know when they're released. But yeah, I'm busy. I'm very busy. But yeah, I have 5 books that you can find on Amazon or my website.
Excellent. All right. William, thanks again. Have yourself a great weekend, and then we'll see you next time, okay?
All right, take care. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Peace. The great William Ramsey. There he goes. I hope you enjoyed today's segment of the Friday Farcast. If you enjoyed the show, yes, you can buy yours truly a cup of coffee right there. I've been proudly demonetized since the 2010s over here on YouTube. But there's plenty of ways that you can support the show. So let's look forward. Fast forward Sunday night. Got a great show planned for you guys on Sunday night, right here, Sunday Night Astro Live. I did a fantastic interview with John Stewart Reed on Monday. He's an acoustic engineer. He's done stellar work around cymatics. And cymatics is essentially the science of sound. Sound waves revealing themselves through unique patterns. It's very Aquarian. The new medicine is sound and light. If you haven't figured that out yet, you can get hip to the trip on Sunday night with this hour-long interview. Plus, I got a ton of astrological content that we'll cover as well. And we'll circle back and talk about the effects of the eclipse, the CMEs, which seem to be really impacting people. Last Sunday, I was so out of it. I slept through most of the day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm taking Sunday night off because I just didn't have the juice in the battery to do a show. I'll have plenty of juice on Sunday night, plenty of content. Come back here. It's going to be 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Subscribe, hit the like button, and most of all, take good care of yourself. This is so important in the times that we're in. And one of the things you can do is you can check out our sponsor, TrueHempScience.com, where you can get some of the best hemp products, CBD, available. And I would take advantage of it while you can, especially with our guy, Chris, who is a CBD alchemist, because it looks like SB3 is going to pass here in Texas. And I'm not really happy about it. Neither is Chris, and neither are many people who are in the business of procuring really good CBD. Delta 9 pretty much killed CBD here in Texas. So the major changes that they're going to have to make to the business, and the products won't occur until September. So you still have time to get these products while you can. Type in 15MINS. You spend $100 or more, and you will get a goodie bag with your order. $150 more gets you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And taking care of oneself isn't just
investigating, using, incorporating CBD in your life. It's all the other things that you do. It's what you feed your body, your mind, and your spirit, and only take in the best, whatever it is. Whatever it is. Don't cheap out on taking care of who you are, whether it's food, whether it's water, whatever it is. Don't cheap out. Take care of yourself. When you're on a plane, what do they tell you to do? Take the fake oxygen mask and put it on yourself first before you put it on your child. There's some wisdom in that. So take care of yourselves. Treat each other well. God bless. Love you all. And I'll see you back here on Sunday night. Thanks again to William Ramsey of WilliamRamseyInvestigates.com. I'm Robert Phoenix. Bye for now.